Hey guys, welcome to my second Python tutorial. Now we're going to jump not straight into Python code right now. I'm going to show you some things first. So I hope by now you've gotten a text editor you want to use for your coding. If not, that's perfectly fine. Just be on the lookout and make sure you get something like using it. It will make your coding experience a lot better. We'll be using the terminal a bit. Somebody already commented on idle. I plan on mentioning this maybe this episode, maybe another one. I didn't bother last one, but I'll talk about idle. You'll want to install that, so I'll just show you what idle is. It's basically, by default, a Python shell. You can use it as a text editor as well if you're in that sort of thing, so it would be optimized for Python code. I'll just show you how to do that. Options, configure idle. Where was it? I think it's in general. You can have it open an edit window by default and click apply, and by default it opens up the edit window, and you can still launch a shell if you want to use this as your text editor, so you can look at that. First, I'm also going to launch a terminal. Make sure you get a terminal emulator you like as well for any terminal work you might be doing. I'm using Terminator for this. That's my terminal emulator choice. I'm just going to go over just a few basic commands you need to know. So, ls to view the contents of a directory, clear to clear the any data off of the screen, touch to create a file, rm to delete a file, mkdir to create a directory, rm-r to delete a directory. If you have a file and you want to make it executable, then chmod plus x to make it executable. If you want to remove the executable, chmod minus x python.py. That's all I can think of for now. Oh yeah, and running it. If you make it executable, then you can use the // python.py. It has to be executable though. Chmod minus x. We can run Python, then the script name. And that'll run regardless of whether or not it's executable. We'll tell Python that we want to run this Python script. Whereas // will rely on a shebang line. I will tell you about that in a minute. So, we're going to create our first script. Open up your favorite text editor and just save this file somewhere. And I'm just going to call this hello world.py. And enter your shebang line. So a shebang line starts with a hashtag exclamation point, then the path to what would be your shell, your programming language. What set of commands are you going to use to tell this computer what to do? And that is Python for this series. So /usr/bin, n for environment, then Python 2. Now you can put Python, but if you have Python 3 installed, it is going to assume you want to use Python 3, and you will have to specify Python 2. If you put a 2 on Python, it will use Python 2 regardless of whether or not Python 3 is installed on your system. So I always put Python 2 on my Python 2 programs so that it will use Python 2 on any system, even if Python 3 is installed. And we are going to then type print a double quote hello world and save that. Open up your terminal, go to your scripts. I also like to point out you can make it executable in your file browser by going to properties, ticking executable and double clicking it. But if there are any errors, you're not going to see them. If you run in the terminal and there's an error, it's going to tell you all about it. You will see what's going on. So I highly recommend doing the terminal until you know there's nothing seriously wrong and it's safe to just run it. Then you can double click, but I recommend terminal first. So Python hello world.py. The .py tells us that it is a Python script. Hello world. And it's sort of a rite of passage for novice programmers to have this as their first programming script. If we make this executable, then we can do a /, and it won't use our login shell because we told it to use Python 2. Hello world. Alright. I'll also cover Python. Oh, yeah, I changed it. That's why I wanted to load the file, because I changed the permissions. Anyways, where is... I think I closed idle. Anyways, we'll go to idle. And here, this is a Python shell. You can get a Python shell by going to command prompt and typing Python, but idle will have a few more bits and bobs. The GUI toolkit used is tkinter, which we will dabble in later. It's a short, simple GUI for a short, simple script. It's not like a graphics library, but I'll get into that later. But we can type code into the shell because Python is what is called an interpreted language. The computer only understands zeros and ones, basically binary. What an interpreter does, let's say I run a program, then the interpreter will take that, what I'm telling the computer, the text, and compile it on the fly. It'll compile it as I run it, and it'll convert to binary so the computer understands it every time I run it. That's the difference between something like Python and C. Because C is a compiled language, it doesn't have an interpreter, it doesn't have a shell because it doesn't have an interpreter. What you do is you will write your text to the file like we just did in our program. Then you will run the compiler and it will take that file and convert it to binary. Then you'll have the binary file. Then you can run the binary file. But if you want to make a change, you have to change the file that you type the text into, the source file. Then you got to compile that. Then you can run that binary. So basically you got to edit the source file, compile it, then run it. If you want to make a change, you have to edit the source file, compile again, and run it. And you don't have a shell to type anything into. However, some text editors, IDEs, can compile the C code in the editor while you're programming it so that you can test out the code. It's a good idea to test out your code in chunks, not until the very end. Otherwise, you could have a big file and tons of errors, and it's going to be, you're just going to be swamped with things to fix. So it's good to fix it as it happens. Catch your errors every now and then fix it. So here's idle. We can print here, hello world, and there, we execute the command. So I could actually use this to test code before I type it into the file, and I do that from time to time. So we can just we can just test code. I could print 2 + 2 and 4. Print 2 times 2, 4, and that's it. That's our very first Python code, our very first Python script. We talked about idle, few shell commands for working in the command prompt for when we use it. And I also talked about compiling versus interpreted languages. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of PingCasts, and I hope you stay tuned for next one, and we'll get into some even more Python code. Stay tuned for the next one.